Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday is your weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. As we always love to do, we love to interact with you. Not interested in the least in just simply being a talking head. So as you're making it into the room, here's what we always love to do. We love to interact with you. So tell us where you're joining us from. One thing that you're excited about today, that you feel life and you feel momentum on, go ahead and just jump in there and say hello to us in there. And as we're doing that, then I'm going to be able to jump in and continue the series that we've actually been in over the last handful of weeks. Who's in the room though? One of the problems for me is I can't see you. You can see me. And so just knowing that you are there and being able to just connect with you, find out what you're thinking about, what you're dreaming about on your end. It's always so important to us. Here's what our focus is going to be today. And probably over the last few weeks, if you've not joined us, we've been focusing on bad money beliefs that keep you broke. And this week, we're focused on I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money. And I hear a lot of coaches say this. This is actually, I would say, this is in the top 3 of bad money beliefs that coaches have all the time. So this is definitely one that I hear, and hopefully we've got a number of people who are in the room tonight that they can really benefit from it. Oh, let me say hello to Michelle. Hey, how's it going, Michelle? Welcome. So where does this belief system come from? And honestly, a lot of people who say something like this probably think it's not a bad money belief at all. Probably most of the people who say something like this are people who probably think, well, this is realistic, this is normal. And this is the problem with bad money beliefs in and of themselves. Anytime you have a limiting belief, one of the reasons why we don't actually confront the limiting belief is we actually think it's reasonable. We think it's in the realm of possibility. We actually think it's true. So when we have a thought like this, we're probably like, oh, well, this is life experience. This is the way that the world works and all of those other kinds of things. But what I want to show you today is that this, in fact, really is a limiting belief and how we actually tackle it. And before I do that, let me just remind you of how we actually go after a limiting belief. The way that we go after any kind of limiting belief, the first thing is, in the way that I describe it is that a limiting belief is anything that puts a lid on your potential. It's anything that puts a ceiling on your ability to be able to grow, develop, and to fully come into your potential. And probably everybody who's in the room, if they're honest with me, and let me say hello to a few more people in here. Let me say hello to Bill, who's always such an encouragement. Bill, you're always such an encourager when you're on here. Here's Nikki joining us from Jacksonville. Excited that I'm showing up for my life. So good. Monica, who's in the room, she's joining us from Oklahoma. Welcome, Monica. April is also joining. Oklahoma is in the house tonight. What's up with that? Oklahoma is being represented. So in terms of limiting beliefs, really what we have is that anything that stands in the way from where we want to go. So if we have a goal over here, and imagine a limiting belief being a wall that's in the way. Now, how do you remove a limiting belief? It's not nearly as hard as what a lot of people think. The first thing that we do is that we bring doubt to actually question what the belief is. And after we bring that doubt as a wrecking ball against that thing, then what we need to do is that we need to actually change the belief systems that we really have after that. And so as we're looking at this one, I want you to pay close attention to this important word that's right there in the middle. I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money. Now, there's a really big problem with this word. This word, enough. I don't even know what it means. It is the most vague, it's the most ambiguous word out of this entire thing. And as a matter of fact, for the people who think this as they're starting out as coaches, I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money. Here's what will scare a lot of brand new coaches. That the average first-year certified coach is charging between $118 to $128 per session. Now, here's what I know. I know that the average American is not making that kind of money. I know that the average coach has never made that kind of money before in their life. And so there's all of these things that start coming up. And you know what happens is that even when good things start to move towards you, uh, they happen to squeeze you in some kind of way. And when you get squeezed, then you find out what you really believe and you find out what you really think. So that if I take a brand new coach and I drop them in front of someone and they're feeling all of these different kinds of things, one of the things that's going to keep a coach from being able to start is not really believing that they are enough in some kind of a way. But what does this really mean? What does I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money? See, when you don't really know and it's all vague and it's ambiguous, you can't really go after it. All we know is that I've got this thought that I don't have enough experience, but what does enough mean? If you are able to define it, if you are able to pick it apart, what does this actually mean? And if you can define it, then we can figure out what the limiting belief is underneath it. And this is how I'm going to show you how to do it. Well, here's the thing, is that I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money. The thing is that there are some things that are true, but probably not necessarily what you think is true. One thing that's actually true that you've probably never thought about before is the fact that, and if I was speaking for you in that person, I'd say, I've never gotten paid for experience. Some of you think that people have actually in the past gotten paid for the experience that they have, but they really don't. And I'm going to show you proof of that in just a second. Also, another thing is that I've never gotten paid for the value that I bring. Here's what's actually true in the situation. It's not really what you think. And I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm going to prove it to you so we're not just saying. Have you ever heard someone say, now you probably applied for a job and you can tell me on the chat if you've ever heard this before. Have you ever applied for a job or you've looked at a job and it says salary commensurate with experience? Has anyone ever seen that before? Have you ever seen that? Go ahead and throw that on the chat if you had. Oh, and let me say hello to a couple of more people. Renee, who's joining us from Hammond, Louisiana. That's where I went to school. Well, I actually went to a couple of different universities, but I actually graduated from Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond, Louisiana. It's a great little school over there. Albert's in the house. Welcome, Albert. Albert. So how many of you have actually heard this or seen it in a job description? That the salary is commensurate with experience. And so what the assumption is that there's some kind of a range that's there that is based on, and Renee says, yes, I've seen that. Well, here's the problem with that, is that there's really no job that's commensurate with experience. I know that they put that in there, but here's what I would say as a business owner, and after working with so many leaders and business owners and organizational leaders, here's what I'll tell you, is that they already have a budgeted item for that position. They already know the max of what they can spend on any kind of position. And I don't know if you guys have ever done this. Have you ever applied for a job that was commensurate with experience and you got it, but you weren't on the low end or on the high end? And you probably didn't say, well, I'm trying to figure out why I didn't get the max amount of money. Like, you probably didn't go back to the person and say, hey, thank you for the job offer, but why am I not on the max end of this? You know why? Because it's vague. It's ambiguous. It's actually a mythical thing that people say out there. Because the reality is that every business and every organization already knows what dollar amount they have earmarked for any position that's out there. And so what are they really basing it on? Because they didn't actually tell you, well, here, we like this experience, but you're missing experience. You never have that conversation. If you've had that conversation, definitely argue with me on that. But the reality is that people have never really had that experience before. Here's the reality of it right here, is that when it comes to being commensurate with experience, because even if you start out on the high end, here's what's true, is that employees either level out, because let's face it, isn't it true that even if you started a job that said commensurate with experience, that you start at that level? Have you guys noticed that the more experience that you gain, you didn't suddenly go into another level for your pay? Have you guys ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that if you work for a company for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you stay at that in that position, have you noticed that you don't really get more than 3% annually as far as your salary is concerned? So what we'd have to say is it's really a myth, because you level out. It's not really based on experience. It's based on something else. You know what it's based on? When I look at it, let's say that I'm a business owner. When I look at a position, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that that position brings a certain value to my organization. And I'm going to put a dollar amount on the position, not on the person. So there's ideally we want to know that somebody can actually do a job, right? But honestly, I'm saying that this is how much value this position brings to my organization, and here's what I'm going to pay for it, right? That's where we come up with salaries, right? And the interesting thing is as well, is that if I actually had a range, like let's say that I had a range of 25K to 32K, and let's say that on the high end, you could get 32K. You know what the difference of that is? It's only a $7,000 difference. When you actually do the math on it, you're really talking about maybe, what is that? It's about $100 a week difference. Like, so when someone says commensurate with experience, it's usually the range is so small, like within like a percentage or two, that when you actually sit around and you actually do the math, you're like, wow, having all this extra experience really didn't put a lot of money in my pocketbook, right? So here's what happens is that because the commensurate with experience thing is a myth, is that the longer someone works in a job, they either level out. So when you work somewhere, you either level out or you quit. And why would you quit? You quit because you believe in your heart you are bringing a lot of value to the organization or to the company or whatever, and you believe that you should be getting more because you have been contributing, but you have a disagreement because they believe that you're bringing in this amount of value, but you have a higher value, so you quit, right? So that's why commensurate with experience, again, is a myth, because it's not really about experience. It's about something bigger. You know what it's really about? It's about value in the way that the owner of the company or whoever is making that decision is saying that there is a certain value on this role. And you know what? Anybody can fill this role. You could fill it, maybe. I could possibly fill it. Somebody else could possibly fill it. But what does it really come down to? It's the value the organization puts on the position, not on the person. So that's why a person would quit rather than staying there. You know what? Also can happen, though, is that a person just simply decides that they're really not going to add value to the organization or the company. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember, and this has happened so many times, but I can remember going to a grocery store. It's our favorite grocery store. And going and getting a few items that we were missing or whatever. And then I get up to the register, and the guy behind the counter was like, "Hey, how's your day?" I was like, "Amazing." Like, I'm so excited about life. And because I really am, like, if somebody asks me, I'm going to tell them, like, what's going on. Like, man, this has been an amazing weekend. We helped some people start businesses, whatever, it's like whatever is going on in me. If somebody asks, I'm not trying to make a big conversation, but I'm really excited. Like, and usually when you tell people stuff and you're excited about it, you get them excited, like you motivate them, And so I look for those opportunities to bring light and those kinds of things. Well, anyway, I remember I said it. I was like, "How's your day?" And he says, "I'm counting down the hours." And I'm like, okay, that is not a great response, right? Have you guys ever heard someone say that? "I'm counting down the hours." Like, even if you're like getting a burger or whatever, "Hey, how's your day?" And they're like, "Well, I'm counting down the hours." And I remember he was like, "I've got about 2 hours." He was like, "Wait a minute." And he looks at his watch. He says, "About an hour and 40 minutes and I'm out of here and I'm going to go chill." And you know what that told me as a business owner? That told me that this person has not been sitting there all day thinking about how they can add value to the company. Where they are is that they are just there for a job. Now, maybe they're meeting the minimum expectations, which is showing up on time, and it's not calling in sick, and it's being loyal and all that. But these are minimum expectations, right? And so what happens is that when somebody joins a company or an organization or whatever, is that a lot of times they're just kind of there for a paycheck. They're there to get their hours in. And so again, that person pretty much stays where they're at, and there's no development, there's no growth, and they don't go anywhere, right? Now, here's the last thing, is that at a certain point, some people actually get promoted. And you know why they get promoted? You know why they get promoted? Here's the hint. They actually don't get promoted because of experience. You know that? Because what this person is doing, this don't add value person, is that they're doing all of the minimum expectation kinds of things, but they haven't taken ownership. Like there's not an X factor about them that allows them to get promoted. Because here's the deal, is that once someone has the X factor and they believe this person has our values, they're all of these things that we think are true of them, they get promoted into a job that they don't actually have what? They don't have experience. You understand what I'm saying? Is that for all of us, if you've ever gotten a promotion in your life, now, there are some times that you are doing a particular job or you're doing some tasks that are similar, or maybe you're taking on a couple of tasks. But honestly, the reality is that most people are who get promoted are doing something completely new, or at least a chunk of it is brand new, that they really don't have experience. But what has happened is that person actually has belief because they've brought some kind of value beyond what the position really was. And so they want to hire them. So for all those reasons, what I'm really saying is that, and here's the other thing that I would say, is I would argue that most of you have never been valued before, seeing the value, that people have truly seen the value in what you bring to play. Now, part of it's because a lot of people work for small to medium-sized businesses and they just don't have the budget, nor do they have a place to promote you to. They're just kind of like, hey, we appreciate you, and you know that we're doing the best job that we can to pay you. Like, that's also true as well. But the reality is that the vast majority of people have never been paid what they are worth anyway. Because there's a lot of things that all of you do for the jobs that you're working right now that are not part of the job description. You know, the you that you bring to work, with the way that you work with people, the kind of responsibility, the ownership, the tasks that you do, the working late. There's all of these things that were never in the job description, but you do it. But it's not getting you rewarded because people don't see the value in you. And so since you've never been rewarded for going above and beyond, it's really hard to believe that anyone would ever value you. Because that's the reality for most people who are in helping professions that are wanting to become coaches, is that the reality is that most of you have been lifetime helpers your entire life. Most of the stuff that you have done to help people, you have absolutely done it for free, or you've went above and beyond. That's true for so many people. And so what we have to really do in this thing is that we have to understand what is true and what is not true, so that when we say something like, I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money, you know what's really eating at many of you is the fact that you've never gotten paid for experience in your life. That's what's really true. You know what's also true is that many of you have never gotten paid for the value that you bring in the workplace. Here's a couple of other things that maybe you haven't thought about as well. Here's what's actually true, is that I have experience, but I've never actually gotten paid for it. How many of you that's true for you? You know a common thing that I hear from coaches all the time? I've been coaching people for years, but I've never gotten paid for it, so I might as well get paid for doing what I'm already doing for free, right? Many of you are already the go-to person. Many of you are already the person that people are seeking out, and they're bringing their dreams, because I know that you're going to be a non-judgmental kind of person who is a person of wisdom and experience and all of these things, and they're going to you because they believe that they could actually have the lid taken off of their life. That's been true for so many of you for so many years. Now, you know what's not true? It's not true that you don't have enough experience to charge a lot of people. What is true is you do have experience, but you've never really gotten paid for it. So it's not really an experience issue at all. The reality is that most of you have been helping people for years. Here's another thing that we would say is actually true, is that what's actually true is I have experience, but no one has given me an official title. And if we're honest about it, that's what's eating at us, is these kinds of things. Because when you finally get to the point, because the problem is not an experience issue. I know that for you. The experience is not an experience. The problem is not an experience issue at all. You know what the real issue is? The real issue is personal value and worth. I don't know if anybody has ever told you this before, but if you're struggling with, I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money, it's not really about experience. It's about personal value and worth. And all of these things have went into telling you that what you bring to the table isn't valuable in some kind of way. If you've been working for somebody for years and years and years, and they've never come to you, and rarely has this ever happened to any human being, have you ever had a job where you're working and you're doing all this amazing stuff and they came to you and said, I had no idea how amazing you are. I just realized that we're not paying you enough. Can we increase your salary by 20%? Like, that's probably something that none of us have ever heard of before in our life. I'm not saying that it's never happened in human history. I'm sure it has, but for most of us, if we're wrestling with this, we've probably never had that experience before, right? And so what it really feeds on is like, what is my value? What is my personal value? And what is my worth? And so much of it has been tied to jobs that were commensurate with experience, because we actually believed that that was why we were getting hired or not getting hired, or why we were getting a raise or not getting a raise or promotion or any of those kinds of things, that we simply kind of boiled it down to that kind of an issue. And so a lot of times we haven't really been valued in those kinds of places. And so here's the way out, right? That's enough of the problem. Let's talk about the way out. Here's the questions that you're going to have to ask. First question is, and this is what really exposes it for what it really is. What amount of money will give you the validation that you need? Like, if you're a person who's sitting around and you are wrestling with this thought, I don't have enough experience to charge a lot of money. Well, part of it, if we looked at it here, it's because you've never gotten paid to do this before. At what point would you feel validated enough if you got paid for something? Like, what amount of money would actually validate you? Is it 25 an hour? Is it 30 an hour? 60 an hour? 100 an hour? And here's what I would tell you. Because this is a personal value and worth issue, pretty much nothing that I could pay someone would actually deal with their personal value and worth, because lack is not about what's in the bank account. It's lack of value and worth in my own heart if I'm feeling these kinds of ways. Here's another question that really exposes it as well. Who else needs to validate you? Are you looking for someone? Are you looking for an organization? Are you looking for anybody who's out there to validate whether or not you are worth what you're getting paid? And if you're looking for that kind of thing, you're probably going to be looking for a really long time, because the reality is that it really is a deep personal understanding of yourself. Here's another question that I would ask is, at the end of the day, who do you need to give you permission to live out your destiny? Because what we have to really say in all of this thing is that if we really got down, and this is the conversation that I've had with people dozens and dozens of times over the years. And I remember when a mentor in my life, and I can go back all the way to, I think, probably 2009, something like that. Or 2010, I believe it was 2010. And I'd known this guy for like over a year. And he'd been in my life, and there'd been things that I've been thinking about doing. And you know what I would do with that mentor is I would reach out to him. We'd hang out, have coffee. He'd spend a couple of hours with me. And, and I didn't have any money at that time or anything else really. I was just getting the beginning stages of some things. And then I wouldn't see him for a while. And then I'd come back and I'd talk to him. And I remember he finally got to this point where I think he was tired of having the same conversation with me, because he could tell that I was just kind of like spinning around. And I remember he said, Paul, you've been talking about this for the entire time that I've known you. As a matter of fact, Paul, I've heard you say the consistent thing over and over again. This is what I would do. This is what I would give my life to all of these other kinds of things. He said, I don't think it's a lack of talent or ability or passion or calling and destiny. He says, I don't think that it's any of those things. He says, the question I have for you is, who needs to give you permission for this thing to happen? Like, what are you waiting for? What's left? Who do you need to say something over your life so that you can go and do this thing? And I remember it struck me in that moment when he asked that pointed question, is that I realized I was the person who needed to give me permission. I was the person who had all of these questions about validation and all of this other kinds of stuff, that at the end of the day, that I'm looking in the mirror of who really holds the keys of whether or not this stuff actually happens or not. Nobody else holds the keys. But when you believe other people hold the keys, then you live very passively. But the reality is that we've got to come to a place where we are telling ourselves the truth. I was so happy that he told me the truth that day, because there's so many people who would have thought, oh, Paul's a nice enough guy. I'm going to have this conversation with him again, and he's going to keep dreaming because that's what we do. But he drew a line in the sand, and it made it very real for me that it's like, hey, nobody else is even thinking about whether or not I am qualified for this kind of thing. Nobody else is actually even thinking about how much money I am worth. Like, you don't realize that no one is thinking any of those things except for you. That's what occurred to me in that moment, is that I had nobody else to blame and I had no more excuses. I was literally the person who's standing in the way. And at what point was I going to give myself permission and say, Paul, you have value, you have worth, you can do this thing. People are going to see the value once you believe the value in yourself. I had to have that moment, that aha moment. But the reality is I actually had to do something about it when I had it. This is the dividing point even right now with regard to this, because you are enough and you have enough experience, or we wouldn't be talking about this. You wouldn't still be sitting here. You wouldn't have Googled it. If there wasn't something deep in your heart that says, this is what you're made for, and this is what you're to do, you would have never made that first search and found me or found our school or anything about coaching or anything else. We've got to put the questions to rest. You know how you put the questions to rest? Is that you take ownership, first of all, and then you take action. Like, it's enough to have an aha moment, but whether or not you actually step into your destiny is really depending on the fact that the proof of your learning is that you've got to choose. Because if you will not choose something different, then we continue to have the same life that we have. And we keep living under this limiting belief. You know when you'll find out whether or not you can charge a lot of money? Is when you try to charge a lot of money. That's when you really find out. Find out if you really have value to bring to people is when you treat yourself by the value. You will train people on how to treat you, and your ideal clients will always rise up. But it really starts with you. It starts with decisions that you're going to make. And let's quit lying to ourselves. Let's be honest. Let's have these moments, but let's take action on those things as well. Let's do this really quickly. Let me pay the bills for a second. And I want to encourage you guys that this weekend, or not this weekend, but on the final weekend of the month, May 28th through 30th, for some of you who have never gotten trained and certified as a coach, this is a great opportunity for you. Last year, we have always done fully online, on-demand education. We were pioneers in online life coach training. And when we started, nobody else was doing it. As a matter of fact, a lot of people were like actually really critical of actually doing that. Now we're the #1 life coach training program in North America. We're the largest. We're the #1 online program. But last year, what we started offering was a live version of our training, but not just the life coach certification course, because we had that training that was already out there. What we wanted to do is that we wanted to go to the next level with it. And so what we did is we developed a boot camp that expands on everything that many of you have already learned, either in the life coach training course, life coach certification course. So this isn't the extensive list of everything that we're covering, but here's what we're going to be covering that weekend. What is coaching? The 4 lenses of a first-class coach, the steps of a coaching session. We're going to show you how to build a coaching framework that gets results. We're going to show you what focused, effective coaching looks like that cuts out the fluff. We're going to show you how to help your clients maintain motivation, which is critical for their success. We're going to give you 2 models of coaching that you can really practice and choose from. We're going to show you the core skills and characteristics for breakthrough coaching. We're going to talk about ethics and show you how to stay safe and be an ethical coach. We're going to show you how to ask powerful questions, how to build coaching relationships that last. I don't know if you know this, but 76% of clients would continue working with a coach. But how do you actually maintain those relationships so you can continue working with people or even expand on that number? Maybe more than 76% of the people you're working with want to work with you. We show you that. What do you include in a coaching agreement? We show you the business side of coaching, all of these things that we actually cover over the course of the weekend. It is live. We go on a Friday night, which is a 2-hour session on a Friday night. And then we do 3 sessions on Saturday that are 2 hours apiece, and 3 sessions on Sunday, all 2 hours apiece. We also have live coaching demos. I know in our life coach certification course, you guys don't get the benefit of those. What you will either get to volunteer and participate in the demo, or you can simply watch it. We have live Q&As at the end of each one of those sessions. So if there's anything that's unclear, you get access to me during those times to be able to ask those questions. You also have replays accessible for the next 90 days after the training is over with, because I know a lot of things in coaching is better caught than taught. And so the more that you immerse yourself in the information, the better that you can actually get it. The life coach certification is included. You do get access to the life coach certification course at the same time that you get this. Yes, you get a certificate. Yes, you get the same certificate that allows you to integrate it in all your social media and also in your website. You also get a free listing on lifecoachmatch.com that's normally $75 a year. The cost for all this is a steal. It's only $247. It is high value. This would normally be in the thousands, and I don't hesitate to tell you that. But we're trying to make it affordable. We're trying to take all of your excuses away if you have any that's left. There's also a payment plan. If you can't come up with $247 all at one time, then you can do that. Now, for those of you who have gotten trained and certified as a coach previously, you can come in as an alumni for only $95. But there's a link inside of the description right now, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, or even if you're on Instagram, if you click our little profile link, you can click over to our website and you can get enrolled. Obviously, we've got limited enrollment for this, and the enrollment's been great over the last week, but we would really highly encourage you. You get started on Friday, you get certified by Sunday, it gets it out of the way, and you're ready to get your business started. Let me say, I see Michelle saying, totally recommend Bootcamp. Thank you for that. And who do I need to say hello to? There's Desiree from Texas. And let's see, there is Nikki. Hey, thank you so much for that, Nikki. I appreciate that. Love that 365 ways to love yourself. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Good to see you. Awesome. Any other questions that you guys have? And I want to look back and see if there is anybody else that I want to say hello to. There's Scooby. Welcome. Anwar says, I had that experience. And appreciate that. Anybody else that wants to say hello, or you have any questions for me before we head out for the night? I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. If I don't see anything that that pops up. Anwar is joining us from Somalia. Welcome. For any of you who are watching, about 25% of our students are actually outside the United States. So welcome. I don't know what time zone you're on today, but we've literally done our boot camp and had people who are joining us at like 3 o'clock in the morning from another country, which was crazy. So it's awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys all immensely. I'm going to highly encourage you to take action, whatever that looks like for you today. Whether that means something that you've already gotten trained and certified and you're starting your business, I'm going to encourage you to take action. Also, I want to ask you to take action right now and just like this post, share it, comment. That's what tells Facebook and YouTube and Instagram that we're doing a good job. So if you would just share that, At the very least, if there's anything that I can ask for from you, at least like and share, and that'll help us a ton so that we can get this out in front of more people. So listen, I appreciate you guys all immensely. Oh, let me look at this really quick. Just want to make sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys all immensely. Have a great rest of your week and take care.